Welcome to Perfectville, your first place podcast for your Miami Dolphins, part of the BLEAV Network, presented by betonline.ag. I am Sam Marcoux, and he is Miami's hero, Greg Camarillo. Greg, how the heck are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. You know, it's week two of the season. There we go. That's a rough start. And just happy to be in the swing of things, man, and ready to start jumping to all kind of NFL conclusions like Derek Carr is the best quarterback in the league and things like that.
Well, Derek Carr right now, if you're playing fantasy football, is the best quarterback in the league. I'm picking him up in the okayest fantasy league ever, the official fantasy football league of this show right here. And like you said, week two, rough start. It's a rough start for the Miami Dolphins. Didn't look great week one, but they pulled it out. And of course, everybody saw, unfortunately, what happened week two. Not only does Tua go down, we're going to talk all about that with his third diagnosed concussion as a pro, fourth in his career. But the Miami Dolphins lose 31-10, the exact score that I predicted, but for the opposite teams. Last week when we did the preview with myself and Christopher Cullen, nothing went right. The play calling was bad, the execution was bad, and of course, insult to injury is the injury itself to Tua Tagovailoa. I guess we need to start there, Greg.
Yeah.
You saw it, I saw it, everybody saw it. It's awful to see. You root for the players, you root for the human beings, especially when you cover a team the way I do and the way you used to play for them and now cover them. What were your thoughts when you saw Tua go down? What was your immediate reaction when you saw that on TV?
Yeah, the first immediate reaction is, oh, damn. Like just concern, and then once you see the guy stand up and walk off, the first reaction is, this is it. It's done. Like, he survived the last one. And don't mean survive literally. I mean with his career. And everyone thought, or I shouldn't say that. I thought, and a lot of people thought that would have been the end of it because it looked so bad.
Right.
He made it through all of last year. And you're like, okay, things are trending in the right direction. And then another one where you can just clearly see the symptoms of concussion. And from what I know from experiencing them and learning about them is that they get worse over time. Like once they start, it's easier to get them. They get more severe. And so it's just like, man, that's it. And I know that's not necessarily it. And we can dive into that in a little bit. But the first reaction was just concern, and then thought that's a wrap for his career.
No, I agree. You just mentioned something. Do you have diagnosed concussions from your playing days, either in college or pros?
Yeah, and anyone that's ever played contact football has had one. Yes, I had a couple diagnosed ones, none nearly as severe as Tua's. And they worry me. I worry about that anytime I forget something. And, you reach an age, I'm 42 years old, where it's natural to forget things. But then the question is it football? Is it life? Is my brain okay?
Right.
And if I had ones as severe as Tua, I'd be 10 times more worried about that.
From a player's perspective, playing wide receiver, I don't know that you guys had an injury quite like this back when you played for the Dolphins or any of the teams that you played for. But Tua has been, and you and I have talked about this as well as Christopher Cullen, has been not only the vocal leader, but the actual on-field leader for these Miami Dolphins. Pretty widely reported after week one that at halftime against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he was the one who gave the speech that basically said, pull your head out of your butts. We got to go out there and play the way we know how to play, and led them to victory week one. So when your team leader, your quarterback and team leader goes down to an injury like that, which is very visibly, and it shook the team. You could tell from that point forward, the rest of that game, Greg, you saw it. I saw it. It was like a fog. They were just like, let's just get through this. We lost the game. We lost a quarterback. Let's just get out of here, without any other injuries or calamity going on. What does that do to the rest of the locker room? Like what is Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, your long snapper, all of those guys, how are they feeling from your experiences, or what do you think they're feeling when they see Tua go down?
So the closest I've had is in Miami. Chad Pennington went down, and he was everything to us in 2008. He came, was traded mid-training camp, showed up literally from practice one, was the leader, pulled us all together, practice one, and told us it wasn't good enough. And this guy literally just showed up, went through a practice, and was like, this isn't good. But it was inspiring because of the way he works, because of the way he handled business. And so when he got hurt and we lost our leader, you look around, like who is going to take that place? Who's going to step up? And it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme of everyone pointing at each other like, okay, is it you? Is it me? Is it you? Somebody has to take that role. And most of the time it's a veteran. Luckily, in our day, we had Chad Henne, who was ready to step up. He was a second-round draft pick, ready to jump in there and get some action. But somebody has to take on that leadership role. And it is usually a veteran because those are the guys that you look to in times of leadership. It'll be interesting to see who plays that role. The Dolphins have plenty of leaders, plenty of veterans. It'll be interesting to see who steps up and tries to play that role.
Who do you think, if you had to put money down, who do you think is going to be the person that says, I will take that heat until Tua comes back, whenever that is? Is it somebody on offense? Is it somebody on defense? Is it both? Do you have one for each? Yeah. I mean, in your estimation, who's that guy?
Yeah, I would think multiple people. You got to have one on offense, and everyone's going to look right at Tyreek Hill. Right. The players declared him the best player in the NFL, so that is the guy you're going to look at. And it's also the guy you're going to look at on the field. We need more from you right now would be the feeling I could imagine in the locker room. And you need a guy like that to step up. I had a coach that always say, stop the bleeding. When things are going bad, somebody has to step up and make those plays to stop the bleeding. And right now, the Dolphins are bleeding bad. And somebody has to be that guy that puts the team on his shoulders. And the first guy I'm looking at is Tyreek Hill.
That's exactly where I go, right? I mean, he's one of the highest paid players. He is the best player according to his peers. But where does that leave Skylar Thompson? Because Skylar Thompson is next man up as the quarterback. What does he say in the huddle? What would you want to hear as a wide receiver sitting in that huddle from your backup quarterback, who we all know isn't going to be the guy long term? Yeah, no. He's a temporary guy. What does he say to rally the troops?
I don't need to hear anything from you. I just need to see you poised, ready to take over. I need to see starter level communication, starter level preparation. I don't need you to suddenly go from backup that no one's expecting to be a leader to vocal leader, because it might not feel authentic. What I need you to do is see your preparation, see your execution, see your communication, and then obviously see your play. But you don't need to fake it. Just handle the business, handle your business as a pro quarterback, and somebody else can assume that leadership role.
Well, and for all of you out there, all the gamblers out there, you need to handle your business. And if you're going to do that on Bet Online. That's because Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our 200,000 mega contest. That almost cost me $100,000 for saying that wrong there, Greg. And pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of 200,000. That's right, 200,000. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 slot games. What could possibly go wrong with online robotic slot games? Ladies and gentlemen, head to the website today and get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. And let's talk a little bit more about Tua, because we're not the only ones talking about this. I jumped on and did a podcast with Dr. David Chow, former team physician for the Chargers back in the day.
My guy,
everybody's talking about. Do you know Dr. Chow? You must know Dr. Chow.
I know what. He was a doctor when I was with the Chargers and is now considered a friend, and his clinic is literally down the street from my house.
Yeah, he was I felt bad. He was at a charity event in San Diego, and we pulled him out of there. He's sitting in the back of his car talking to me about a concussion. Meanwhile, he's at this charitable, Give Back Foundation event, and he's just like, I feel really bad. I don't have good camera. I'm like, it's fine. We just want to pick your brain right now about Tua's brain. But shout out to Dr. Chow. He had mentioned, and again, he's a doctor, right? And he's not a brain doctor or anything like that. He's an orthopedic surgeon, but he's been around enough people who have been concussed to really have, the authority when it comes to this. And he said the best thing Tua can do to save his brain and to stop having injuries is to stop playing football. Now, that's not to say that playing football is reasonably unsafe. He needs to be checked out. He needs to let the symptoms clear. And hopefully, if there's no long-term effects and all the doctors and his family all agree that he can continue playing, then he should, if that's what he wants to do. But he's not the only one that has this. And like you said, your immediate thought was, Tua, this is it. This is the end of his career. Another bad concussion. I look at this from the optics too, Greg. Thursday Night Football again. I mean, this happened against the Cincinnati Bengals a couple of years ago. Thursday Night Football, concussion, everything that the NFL has had to deal with concussions over the last 5 to 10 years at least. And then, of course, the poster boy for it all, the guy who changed the entire concussion protocol, Tua Tagovailoa, is down on the mat again. It doesn't look good, and we're not the only ones who have an opinion here. I actually want to play this. This is actually from the BLEAV In Commanders podcast. So our brethren over there, your boy, Anthony Armstrong, former Miami Dolphin.
Former Dolphin.
Yeah, he had Joe Theismann on, and Joe Theismann knows a thing or two about injuries when it comes to the quarterback position. He had some strong't and opinions about Tua. I'm going to pull this up. Let's listen to this, and let's talk about it afterwards here. So let's pull this up.
History that he has had with concussions, I have great concern for his health and his future if he goes back and plays football, which he intends to do. Doctors will clear him and tell him he's okay, but obviously any say, he was cleared to go back before and play, and he was cleared to go back before that and play. And so there seems to be a recurring problem. I just don't want someday in the not too distant future to hear that, Tua can't play anymore and he's not capable of functioning the way a young person should. He's 26 years old. He's got the rest of his life ahead of him. Economics are not an issue. I understand fully his love for the game. I understand that he wants to play. Sometimes it takes someone other than you to make the decision for you because you're so emotionally involved, and that's who you are, and that's what you want to be. And goodness knows, he will get his head hit again. It's unavoidable at this position. I just don't want to see the next one be the one that really makes a terrible impact and difference in his life.
I'm with you on that.
To me, I'd say walk away, but I know he won't. But like I say, by saying that, my concern is just for the young man's health. That's all.
So strong words from Joe Theismann, and I can't say that I disagree with him.
No. So, well, Joe, competed at the highest level, one of the greats. And I believe, at least from my experience, the further you get away from the game, the better your perspective is on the game. When you're in it, it is almost impossible to remove yourself. You do not want to remove yourself. You will play on a broken leg. You will risk permanent injuries because it means so much, because you've put so much into it. Now, over the last couple of days, I've listened to the different takes on Tua, and I've heard the takes that it's a medical decision, which absolutely is. I've heard the takes that it's Tua's decision. Absolutely it is. And yes, there's a decision in between the two of them, right? There's medical advice and then Tua's decision, or there's medical not getting cleared and then it's not Tua's decision. But the perspective that I've come to the last couple of days is this is also an organizational football decision, because his history, he's only played one full season, and they gave him the bank, which you can never predict the future. So I have no problem with that. But can you continue to invest in a player that can't play a whole season if the hit wasn't even that bad of a hit,
right,
to be that big of a concussion? So like Joe mentioned, he's going to get a hit like that again. Can the Dolphins go forward and spend the whole offseason with Tua as a number one quarterback, Tua taking every first team rep in training camp, knowing that he will likely not play an entire season? And so there's the medical opinion, there's the Tua opinion, but then there's also the Miami Dolphins opinion. Is it time to move on and find a guy that we know can be out there more and invest in him? And so those are the three perspectives of it. And honestly, you got to have your quarterback out there more. And this is I'm removing the personal aspect of this because it's a huge personal issue with Tua as well and his health. But from an organizational football standpoint, I need a quarterback that's going to be out there. And Tua has not proven to be that guy. And that's not a knock on him as a human. That's just the fact of how often he's out there.
Again, I can't find any holes in your argument. I can't find any holes in Joe Theismann's argument. I can't find any holes in Dr. Chow's. I know, as a person who covers this team and has been watching this team since I was a wee little lad, that Tua is probably the best quarterback talent-wise this team has seen since Dan Marino. And that's all due respect. I'm a big Chad Pennington guy. I like Ryan Tannehill. Chad Henne is the robot, as we like to call him, who went on to have a stellar career and is going to retire and has retired as a Chief, which kind of annoys me. But Tua's got kids. Tua's married. He's 26 years old. He's got 50 plus years to live his life. Money isn't a concern for Joe Theismann. I am not advocating for Tua to retire right now. But to your point, when I saw him on the ground, my first thought is, that's it. He's done. I had to go on Mad Dog Sports Radio, Sirius XM, after that game and talk to George Wrightster. Shout out to George, former tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he asked me point blank, is this the end of his career? And I said, I think it might be. I mean, I don't know how severe it's going to be. Since then, Tua has come out, says he has no plans to retire. The Miami Dolphins have put him on IR, so he will miss at least the next 4 games, eligible to return with the bye week against the Arizona Cardinals late October, if he's willing and able, and everybody's on board with it. But it's got to be it. I think this has got to be the very last of it, right, Greg? I mean, if he gets hit again, and like Joe Theismann said, he's going to get hit in the head again. If he gets another concussion, I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of doctors or medical people that are going to let him continue. Now, not every concussion is the same, as Dr. Chow said. And you look at Mitch Morse, center for the Jaguars. He has 6 confirmed concussions. But there's differences. There's differences in terms of what you see with Tua on the field and how he's hitting his head and the aftermath of that, the effect, the impact of that versus some other types of concussions. So I really don't know. But like you said, from an organizational standpoint, I think the Miami Dolphins have to start looking for a premium, I'm not going to say backup, but they need to look for a premium quarterback. That's probably going to have to happen in the draft. I don't think you're going to trade for anybody right now that's going to be worth a damn that you're going to invest in long term, but you still have $53 million a year to Tua. So Tua is going to be your starter until something else changes. But I think you're right. They're going to have to start looking earlier than they think they expected to find Tua's replacement, just in case.
Yeah, and I also, this is going off on a tangent, but I also think we're entering an era of the NFL as we're at 17 games, pushing to 18 that they basically said is coming soon, where you're going to have 2 quarterbacks, starter 1A and 1B, because it is so hard to make it through an entire season. And we've seen teams starting to do that. Atlanta has Kirk Cousins, and they drafted Michael Penix, and we saw why they signed Kirk Cousins last night, because he was amazing. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. They traded for Taylor Heineke just so they have a backup that they feel comfortable with. The Cleveland Browns went into training camp with 4 former starting quarterbacks, which, I mean, that's a huge alarm. So your number 1 guy, why do you need 3 behind him? But like, you're reaching a point where Pittsburgh has 2 of them, and Justin Fields and Wilson. Yep. You're reaching a point where you kind of need to have a solid backup. Maybe not 2 starting guys, but you got to have a solid backup. And maybe that's a system for Tua. Maybe there's a point where they've got 2 guys they're comfortable with, but you can't be paying number 1 $50-something million not to be out on the field. So anyway, that was my tangent. 5 years from now, when every team has 2 quarterbacks, we can reload this and talk about it again.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because actually one of the things I was talking about on Mad Dog Radio is the fact that I believe, and have been predicting for the last couple of years, that because we're going to these widespread offenses and you're going to these 5 wide receivers sets, and you don't have bell cow running backs anymore, you're starting to see base defenses be nickel packages and smaller linebackers to chase all these wide receivers all over the field, that if somebody were to come in with a Derrick Henry type and just pound the ball in the middle of the field and you can get past that defensive line, you could run because you can just mow over the top of these linebackers and these safeties because they're so much smaller, because they're faster. And he asked me that question of like, passing is down. And I'm like, I've been saying this for years. You're going to start seeing running backs come back in vogue, especially if you're paying quarterbacks all this much. You have to have them on the field. One way to do that, protect them, turn around and hand the ball off.
Good news, Sam. You got John Harbaugh back in the NFL, and he is going to do exactly what you talked about. They literally got rid of all their receivers, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, who was a running back and caught a bunch of balls, and they're going to J.K. Dobbins the ball all the way down the field. It's worked 2 weeks. Now, they played the Raiders and they played the Panthers. Oh, man, the Panthers. Oh, they look bad.
Yeah.
But you're going to see this experiment. He's done it everywhere he's gone, and it'll be fun to see. It's can they continue to just pound the ball and actually get some victories?
I don't know, but I mean, as a fantasy owner of Justin Herbert, I'm very pissed off at Mr. Harbaugh right now because he's not helping me out any. But How do the Miami Dolphins help themselves? Because one of the things I think what's a point of frustration, let's just put it out there. If Tua never gets hurt in this game, they still lose 31-10, maybe 31-17, but they don't win this game. They weren't playing well. He threw some bad interceptions. You have balls going to guys named Grant DeBose and, of course, Robbie Chosen, who was, by the way, cut from the practice squad today. I'm pretty sure he got lost on his way out of the building. Like, you shouldn't have Grant DeBose on third down against the Buffalo Bills when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen freaking Waddle on the sidelines. What type of personnel grouping is that? My point is, nobody played well. The coaches didn't coach well. What is wrong with Miami in general through the first 2 weeks? Their offense is not what it was last season. The defense was very porous against Miami's own James Cook, who scored 3 touchdowns and I think is still running the ball against them right now. So take Tua's injury aside. What did you see against the Buffalo Bills that should give all Dolphins fans alarm, or am I just ringing the bell and I shouldn't be? But it did not look good to me in terms of a game plan, in terms of execution of that game plan. It just looked bad all the way around.
Yeah. It should be alarming, especially against a division opponent in a year where the Bills are not predicted to take a step forward. I mean, maybe stay even keel, but I was thinking they would take a step back. It is concerning. Throwing the ball to a third or fourth or fifth wide receiver, they have to perform. Your job is, you are a professional wide receiver. You have to be out there running the right route and catching the ball. It is not, Tua has reads. Like, the quarterbacks have reads. If Tyreek is doubled and Jalen Waddle's not open or doubled, number 3 has to perform. And that's why you get cut. If you don't perform, you get cut. And so it's not on the quarterback. It's not on the play caller. Of course, you want to design plays to get to Tyreek, but defenses are going to design defenses to stop him. And you can't get it to him all the time. And other guys got to step up. It's as simple as that. And you look at, blanking on his name, but Christian McCaffrey's backup at running back. You could look at that and be like, why is he getting the ball? And instead, he did a great job because that's his job.
It's Anthony Mason, if I'm not mistaken.
There you go. Yeah. Anthony Mason. So backups, when they get a shot, they got to deliver, and that's,
I mean, it work. That first interception hit Grant DeBose. I mean, it couldn't hit him closer between the eyes. It bounced off his helmet. That Buffalo Bills, I don't even know who it was in the secondary, happened to be like, oh, thank you for the gift, and that's unfortunate. That's not really on Tua. He put the ball exactly where it was supposed to be. Yeah. Grant didn't turn his head. I mean, if you look at that, he threw that ball before Grant was even turning, and that's what he does. He's a timing expert when it comes to throwing that ball, and he dotted him. It literally dotted him and went off. The Robbie Chosen one, you could say he overthrew it. I think Robbie ran the wrong route. He just seems like he didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't going the right way. So I don't even put that interception onto it. The third one was his. He was trying to throw it away. It was a garbage duck that he threw up into the air, and that was awful. I mean, that was just a really, really bad throw by Tua, and he's got to own that one. But I don't know, man. I know they got to perform, like you said, your third, fourth, and fifth string wide receivers. I don't know why they're out there on 3rd and 8. To open the opening drive. It's not like they're sucking wind. It's the opening drive, Greg. And you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle sitting on the sidelines. You got the best wide receiver, the best NFL player in the game on the sidelines on 3rd and 8 and the first possession of the game when everyone is watching and everyone knows this is a ghost that you can't shake. Yeah, I think that's I think that's bad personnel.
You're right. There's yes. If you got weapons like that, they got to be out there. Yeah, I mean, there's you're 100% correct on that one.
Well, I'm going to take that as a victory. The Miami Dolphins may not have won this week, but I got a victory. I got a attaboy from Greg Camarillo, so I'm pretty happy about that, Greg. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So you and I, we've been doing the show here for a few weeks now, and I went on Reddit. Are you familiar with Reddit?
Yes, not in depth, but they always have the answer to any question I put in Google.
So I went on Reddit and I told everybody that you're on the show and we should ask Greg anything. Let's have a good old fashioned AGA. And the boys from Reddit, the girls from Reddit did not disappoint. Here's the thing. I'm disappointed. I was expecting a little bit more crassness. I was expecting a little bit more Reddit-like behavior from Reddit people. Maybe somebody who knew you in the past was like, hey, he threw up at a party in Stanford or something like that. He secretly has a Cal Berkeley tattoo or something like that. Nothing like that. Everybody loves you. Everybody loves Greg.
Yeah.
Everyone hates Chris. Everyone loves Greg. So I'm I'm going to read a couple of these off to you. We do have some questions as well, but I'm going to read a couple of these. Like I said, it's almost nothing but love. This first one comes from Flomarilius.
Solid name.
Does Greg want to be treated to Flanagan's? And I don't know what Flanagan's is. Is that a restaurant in San Diego, or is that a restaurant in Miami, or is that a college reference? Do you understand that question?
Flanagan's is that not from Office Space where they're
the shenanigans? Is that Shenanigans?
And laid-back family-run restaurant in South Florida? No, sorry, I had the wrong. It is. The answer is yes. I love all food. I'm looking online. There's ribs and seafood. Yeah, hell yeah, sign me up.
All right. So Flomarilius, next time Greg is in town, he's going to get a hold of you somehow. Just wait at Flanagan's and Greg will show up and you can treat him there. All right. This one comes from Laser Ingtray. You know, if you guys could just have better, easier, why can't Bob ask a question? But is Greg a cat or dog person? I think I know the answer to this, but are you a cat or dog person, Greg?
You know what? I grew up with cats and I currently have dogs. I got to lean dog. It's not a huge difference. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not a huge favoritism one way or the other, but I have dogs and I enjoy my dogs.
Yeah. What kind of dogs do you have?
He is a mutt, 25% Malinois, and then a bunch of other things. One we had for 10 years who just passed away was a half pit, half collie.
Okay. All right. I'm a dog person myself. I grew up with cats. I can't stand them. I'm more of a dog guy. I've got a big ass golden retriever myself. It's not Ask Sam anything, but I'll just share. His name's Rufus the Doofus. That's his actual name. So when I go to the vet and they say Rufus, I will not respond. But when they say Rufus the Doofus, as I wrote it down, present, we're here.
Solid.
All right.
Well done.
This one comes from Turvo Vet 7123. This is more. This is actually pretty cool. This is not a question. This is just let Greg know I wore 83 in high school in honor of him, please. So,
oh my God, things like that. See, those are things I did as a kid, and those are the things that I love because I never ever expected in life to ever hear something like that, and it's just cool to me that football put me in a place where I can hear a comment like that, and those are the things where looking back on my career that I just love. Like I never thought I'd have a trading card as a kid, and I freaking love having a trade. Like there's things like that, man. That made my day.
What you wore different numbers throughout your career, and let's even go back to high school. What's your favorite? If you can go back and play one more game, and you could pick any number, what number are you picking?
I'm going with that. I'm going with 83.
You got to go 83.
Yeah, I wore. Oh man, I wore all kind of different numbers. So the problem with being a wide receiver that is not muscular or fast looking, people think I'm a punter. And so in college I had 23, people thought I was a punter. New Orleans Saints, I had 17. It just looked weird.
Yeah.
So I got to have something that is not a punter and is more wide receiver. So 83 did me well.
I think you're the last generation of receiver in the NFL where the 80s were the wide receiver numbers because they started opening it up to 1 through 20, and now you can wear any number, right? So
yeah, Rashid Shaheed is catching bombs in New Orleans with number 22. I'm like, what 22 fast running back is that?
The hell is Reggie Bush doing out there? Yeah. That's the thing too, because it used to be like if you wore 17, like in training camp, it's like that guy's not making the roster. He's just a roster body. But now it's like Jalen Waddle's getting, $83 million wearing number 17.
Fun story. My very first jersey when I got to the Chargers, I was a tryout guy. Was number 4, which at the time was an ineligible number for a wide receiver. So that just showed you they did not think I was going to stick around. So, hey, I really looked like a punter with number 4 on.
Well, then they checked the scouting report and, Wes Welker type, Brandon Stokely, that type of guy. And you had quite the career. So here's one here. Okay, we talked about the Flanagan's one. Oh, I had to look this up. I forgot all about this. This jogged my memory. I'm sure it's fresh in yours, but this comes from Joker and Hyde. And he says, what does he think, meaning you, about the leg catch he had all those years ago? It was one of the earliest moments of my Dolphins fandom from another Greg. So this guy's name is actually Greg. So the leg catch, for people that don't know, this was against the Falcons, if I'm not mistaken, correct? I had to look this up. A hell of a catch. I forgot all about it until I looked it up after looking at this question and went, I do remember this. What the hell? How the hell did you do that? Number one.
One of my favorite catches, and I refer to it as the butt catch because it was close to the gluteus maximus that reeled that in. So I got knocked to the ground and the ball just kind of landed on me and in between my legs. So I squeezed my legs to my butt and caught a ball, of which I didn't think I caught, but it happened right next to the sideline. And all my teammates were like, get up, get up. So I still feel robbed of a touchdown because they ruled it incomplete.
They blew the whistle.
I got up and started jogging to the end zone and no one was around me. So I would have scored. But then we went back to the replay and sure enough, I squeezed it right between my rear end and my calf and got me a butt catch.
I looked this up on YouTube and it was like the top 10 greatest catches in NFL history. And you were number one. That was number one.
No way.
I was. I'll send you the link. I'll email it to you. But it blew my mind.
I'm honored.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you got people wearing your jersey number in high school. You got the greatest catch in NFL history. You got the other greatest catch in Miami Dolphins history. And it came from this guy. So I'm going to actually ask this question. This comes from 26 U-Haul. Is Cleo Lemon the greatest quarterback in Dolphins history?
Well, he's my greatest quarterback. I love Cleo Lemon, man. We were together in San Diego and then together in Miami, all because of Cam Cameron. And he, even as a practice squad guy for myself, always accepted me, took me in, taught me how to be a receiver, what he was expecting as a quarterback. And so when it was time in Miami at 0-15, like we had chemistry. Like he knew where I was going to be. He knew he could trust me. And that goes a long way, man. And I still, every blue moon, I'll text Cleo just to check in, or it'll pop up on Twitter somehow. But I've always got love for that guy, and I owe him a lot. Is he the best? Yeah. Neither of us were the best in Dolphins history, but he's the best in my history.
Well, according to Creaking Door, who responded to that question on Reddit, it was a simple yes, he is. So you're not the only one who thinks that way. Apparently, Cleo Lemon has the fan club out there as well.
As you should.
Yeah, of course. And this one comes from My Red Shirts. What was the locker room like in 2007? That's a great question. What was that like that entire season?
Sam, it was the most depressing place. So when you're 0-15, you don't go into each week saying, oh, shit, we lost this one. You bust your ass. Like you work hard, especially us guys that were not solid roster guys for the future, trying to build our career. Like you are busting your ass. And you go into a game, and I think we lost 6 games that year by less than three or less points. And so these were like heartbreaking games. And we're like, we're there. And then to give your all every week and lose, it's just depressing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure fans felt that way too. But it was rough, man. But I'll tell you what, I never won a Super Bowl. I never won a playoff game. That one game we won that year, it was like we won the Super Bowl. And so we let all that depression out and celebrated like we were great when really we just weren't the worst.
And the legend Rich Camarillo was born, as we've talked about on here before. I think we've talked about that, but for maybe people that didn't hear your first appearance on the show many, many years ago, you get back to the locker room, you're ecstatic. Like you said, you guys just released 0-15, rage all over the Baltimore Ravens in overtime. You get that victory, monkey off your back, and then you got to watch the highlights, right? You're jumping right to the highlight. Let me see that. And do you hear the radio call of Rich Camarillo?
God, I can't remember when I heard it, but I mean, the fun things afterwards is someone decided to drag my dad into the locker room. So my dad was in the locker room with us. Which,
no way.
What a cool moment for him. Like I have no idea how that happened, but they brought him in there. So he was in there. We went out that night to a club, bar, restaurant thing that had ESPN playing behind the bar. And I was just staring at it like, wow, how cool. The radio call from Mad Dog saying, I love Rich Camarillo. It just signifies the moment, man. Like, no, going into that game, I had 1 catch for 2 yards. Like I was literally a nobody. And then the comment I just made about always feeling like people looked at me as like a punter. Rich Camarillo was a punter. Or people would see my jersey and be like, oh man, I loved you with the Cardinals where Rich Camarillo played. And so it was just a full circle moment of, I finally contributed. I made a play. We won a game and people still think I'm a punter, even the announcer guy. So it was a hilarious moment. And I actually got to meet Rich Camarillo years later and told him the story, and he got a good kick out of it as well.
I really hope, and it's probably not, but I really hope that the bar you went out to that night was Flanagan's. I mean, it would just be amazing if that's what happened and you just somehow ended up at a Flanagan's watching Rich Camarillo highlights.
It was not, but Flanagan's might have been a good move too.
That's right next door to Tootsie's. We all know where you guys were. All right. All right. I got a couple more here, and I actually have a couple. I'm looking for this question here. This one's. I don't know. There's a couple here. I guess I got my wish. I'm looking at these now. I did get a couple of Reddit type ones. This one comes from real prop Randy. When Greg Camarillo goes number 1, how does he keep it from touching the water? That's just.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, what a ridiculous question, but please answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's the right answer. That's the answer. Right there.
Hey, it's the internet, man.
Yeah, this one comes from Shasta McLurkey. So you can imagine this is going to be brilliant. Has Greg gotten his Cam Cameron tattoo covered up yet? I feel like Cam Cameron redeemed himself when he left Miami. I mean, just look at his resume before and after. This has always been a hard spot for me because I owe a lot of my career to Cam Cameron. He was the offensive coordinator in San Diego, one of the guys who gave me a shot. One of the guys who taught me how to play at the NFL level. And now I credit James Lofton, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, for the early coaching because he meant everything to my career. Literally the guy who gave me a shot. But Cam Cameron gave me a shot as a practice squad guy. He gave me a shot second year on the active roster. And I could sit here. Oh, man, I know there's a podcast and I don't want to ramble for an hour. Cam Cameron gave me opportunity after opportunity, particularly with that play that won us that game. Scat right, Ernie. He let me run it in San Diego on a practice squad. He had me draw it up in front of the entire team just to show that a backup knows how to run a route. And then he brings me to Miami. And that's a long story. I got cut and I emailed him. And that's how I ended up there, not through agents or anything like that. It was literally me emailing him. Yeah, my agent disappeared for a day. And so I played my own agent and emailed Cam Cameron. And he called me first thing in the morning and basically said, here we go, pack up. So I know it was rough in Miami, and I know Miami fans don't like him, but I've got a lot of love for him. I did a TV show with him here in San Diego afterwards. Good guy in my book. But, the rest of Miami can have their own opinion. They can have their own opinion, but again, look at his resume. We were all excited when he came because he was this offensive genius, and then I think he went to Baltimore and won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator. Am I correct in that? Yeah. I mean, the guy knew football. I mean, that whole season was just snake bit from the start. I mean, you got Ricky Williams retiring. I think the year before that, you've got issues with quarterbacks getting injured. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. No, I'm glad you brought that up because I think history should be kinder to Cam Cameron. And I was probably guilty of it. By the way, that season, I think it was before you were on the active roster, but I went to the Jets game where Chad Pennington high stepped in for the game-winning touchdown and beat us by 3 points. I think it was week 3. Chris Cullen was there as well. And that was the, week 3 of that 1-15 season. We lost by 3 points. And that happened over and over and over again. He wasn't that far off. The team just couldn't get over the hump. No. That's just what it was. So, I appreciate you joining us for Ask Greg Anything. We got some good answers out of there. Wonderful stories. I do have a question for you, though, because we talked about Anthony Armstrong a little bit earlier. We talked about Cam Cameron. I'm curious, who is the best teammate you ever had? And that could be high school, college, professional. Who's the guy that you said, if I'm picking my Greg Camarillo team, this is my number 1 draft pick?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I've heard favorite teammate, best wide receiver. Oh, man. I'd probably go with Chad Pennington.
Okay.
Amazing leader. And at the point he came to Miami was past his physical prime. He post shoulder surgery, but adapted and was still an amazing quarterback. Connected with everybody. And just the bar of expectations that was set was beyond what I've seen others do. The communication, the detail, the bringing people in to come along with you, not just barking at you, but bringing you in. If through my career, if I'm starting a team with someone, it's Chad. And even if it wasn't as a quarterback, it would be as a coach, because that guy could rally the troops.
You're talking about a guy who caught touchdowns and receptions from people like, I don't know, Drew Brees, ladies and gentlemen. So that's saying a lot with Chad Pennington.
Yeah, but I had more catches from Chad, so we'll roll with him.
What I really loved about that season too is because he was unceremoniously dumped because Brett Favre came to New York and they were like, get out of here. And he comes to us, and then we beat Brett Favre and the Jets the last game of that season to win the, to win the division, go on to the playoffs. So, all right. Well, I guess the other question, you may have answered it already. The best coach, and that could be head coach, position coach, the best coach you ever played for. And again, going back to high school, college, positions and pros, whatever.
Marty Schottenheimer. Amazing. Marty Schottenheimer, man. And rest in peace. An NFL coach is not an X's and O's guy necessarily. We have guys, Mike McDaniel is the offensive X and O guy. A head coach's first job is getting the troops all pushing in the right direction together. Marty Schottenheimer was amazing at that. And this is a team with LT, Antonio Gates, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Lorenzo Neal, like guys that could easily be ego first, and he got them to be team first. And it was the most fun I've ever had. I was on the practice squad. I was active. We were 14-2, went to the playoffs, of course, lost to Tom Brady. That was the beginning of my hatred for Tom Brady, which I know all Dolphin fans feel. But I just get to sit back and watch in awe of this man work. And it was impressive, and he was the real deal.
All right. I got two more questions for you. One's kind of a personal one, and the other one is based on what you just said about your hatred of Tom Brady. Let's say Tua can't come back this season.
Yep.
And the phone rings, and it's Stephen Ross, and he's calling his old buddy Tom Brady and says, you got one more season in you?
Sign him up.
You're a Tom Brady fan, just like I would be.
Yeah, I have the utmost respect for his football ability. I dislike him because I lost to him so many times. Sure. And I don't like dynasties. Like, I'm starting to dislike Patrick Mahomes because I want to see some more. He's amazing. Yeah. If Tom Brady was a Dolphin, I would 100% watch and cheer for him, because it's fun to watch greatness in a new spot. Tom Brady left and then went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. Fucking amazing. Yeah. So, sign him up. Put him out there. It would look so weird and it would be hard, but hey, let's rock.
I mean, talk about a story. I mean, we would be on the front page of every sports and just news cycle in general if Tom Brady came back again and did it with the Miami Dolphins. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to run with Skylar Thompson for a little bit. We're going to see what we can do with Snoop Huntley. If nothing else, he's got a cool name. And we'll see what happens. So what's your prediction for the Miami Dolphins for the rest of the year, Greg? From here forward, how should we set our expectations as Dolphins?
Not high. Oh, man. Especially in the division. We saw what a matchup with Buffalo looked like, and that was with Tua for most of it. The Jets are going to get rolling somehow, some way. Oh, man. Even the Patriots look decent.
They look better than I expected them to look, for sure.
Just ride the wave, man. That's all. I would set no expectations and just hope for a decent year, because the expectations were super high and now my heart's already broken. And so here we go.
Well, ride the wave and set no expectations. Just take it as it comes, ladies and gentlemen. And hopefully we're pleasantly surprised. I mean, the schedule is kind of soft over the next 4 to 5 weeks. If you look at it and just look at it on paper, maybe Skylar Thompson and the team comes out. I do think the defense is going to take offense to everything being Tua, and the fact that they laid an egg against the Buffalo Bills. I feel like they're going to come out firing against Seattle, which, by the way, shout out to the All Day podcast with Lofa Tatupu. I'll be on that later this week, as well as 95.3 The Score out of Eugene, Oregon, where I'm from originally. I'm going home to talk some smack. That worked so well for me in Buffalo last week, but we'll see how it all goes. But Greg, I appreciate you jumping on here, answering the questions, answering the tough questions. You've got free drinks and food at Flanagan's waiting for you the next time you hit South Florida. And with that, the only thing left to say on behalf of the Miami's hero, Greg Camarillo, myself, and the two-time Hall of Famer, Christopher Cullen, and everyone else at BLEAV, presented by betonline.ag, goodbye from Perfectville.